here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Bit of a homecoming for Jayden Daniels. Much of a homecoming to be for a guy who is from Southern California and played 3 years college football at Arizona State. But he certainly spent the last 2 years of his life in Baton Rouge at LSU and then was the second pick in the draft after winning the Heisman Trophy. He heads to Washington, to an organization in complete disarray. But they have new ownership. They get a new coach, Dan Quinn, and Jayden Daniels has transformed what that organization has been. He's been part of that transformation. Of course, the Commanders started 4-1 on the season. At one point, they were 7-2. I think the highlight probably for them early in the year was Jayden out-dueling Joe Burrow in Cincinnati in a 38-33 win. But they go and absolutely hammer Arizona 42-14. They crushed the Browns 34-13, lost a one-score game at Baltimore before hammering Carolina, doing enough to beat Chicago and beating the Browns. They played Pittsburgh to a 28-27 game, and then went to Philadelphia and lost by 8. But the tough loss was the one to Dallas. That's a tough one to swallow for Washington. They come back and handle their business against Tennessee, 42-19. 2 weeks ago. They come off of a bye now, and they come to New Orleans. And we know that New Orleans has had its issues with mobile quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts has famously really hurt this team in multiple matchups. I don't know that he went crazy in the game in week 2 this year or week 3 this year, but he's hurt the Saints and certainly beaten them a number of times. I was talking to Jordan off the air. Famously, Josh Dobbs comes out of nowhere, hadn't even been with a team in Minnesota at all, and he carves the Saints up. They just don't stop the run. Luke, who we talked to yesterday on the show, mentioned that Drew Lock ran for over 40 yards on this Saints team just a week ago, and that's a big problem when you deal with Jayden Daniels, who has a rushing touchdown in each of his last 2 games, had 4 rushing touchdowns in his first 4 games as an NFL starter, but did not have a rushing touchdown in the 7 games between them. I think a lot of people misconstrue athleticism for depending on the run. Lamar Jackson does not depend on his legs, and Jayden Daniels does not depend on his legs. I would argue Michael Vick depended on his legs. I would argue to an extent that Cam Newton depended on his legs as a runner. And then you've got guys like Doug Flutie ran around like a crazy person. But Jayden Daniels wins from the pocket. You look at his rushing totals this year, and after his first 3 weeks, where you're really trying to get acclimated to playing in the NFL, after his first 3 weeks as a starter, he has not had 10 rushing attempts but once, and that was against Cleveland. He usually runs the ball about 7 plays a game. They're going to do a little bit in the read option game, certainly around the line, around the goal line. They like to do some read option stuff and give him the option to run it. And then when the plays break down, he will move. But Jayden is now playing kind of like he did at LSU, where he's going to drop back and he's going to look down the field first. Then he's going to extend the play while looking down the field. And if that all breaks down, he'll take off. And he's still got elite speed. And he will do that at times. But this is not a guy who's running the ball 20 times a game, not a guy that's running the ball 15 times a game. I realize that you really can't do that in the NFL. In the Baton Rouge market here, we certainly talk about Diego Pavia when LSU played him as a mobile quarterback. He depends on his legs. He runs the ball like 18 times a game. Jayden doesn't do that. But the question is, can the Saints slow him down, and will this aspect of his game be pronounced against a defense, certainly a defensive personnel, even with Dennis Allen gone, that has really struggled to stop the running quarterback? I can't give a great reason why they're not good against running quarterbacks. They've had really good linebacker play with Demario Davis and whoever is there with him over the last 5 or 6 years. They've been athletic in the secondary for when you play zone and somebody's got to come up and make a play. Like, yeah, I don't trust Cam Jordan to necessarily go run down a quarterback, but like, not many defensive ends in the NFL can run down a mobile quarterback. So that's not unique to the Saints to have a bigger edge rusher there that's trying to get to the quarterback. I don't have a great reason for it unless they just play a ton of man coverage and don't allocate a player to the quarterback ever. I mean, Bo Nix had a big game against the Saints a couple weeks ago, and he ran the ball a good bit. And it's just it's a little bit puzzling to me. And I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and crunch numbers on the statistics over the course of 8 years of running quarterbacks. I'm not a guy that's going to go dive into the film and give you a great X and O breakdown of why the Mike backer is not necessarily attached to the quarterback. But I can tell you just from watching the Saints, as you, the Saints fan, has done no doubt over the years, and you've seen it enough times where you can go, not good. And this is one of the last guys I think you want to see if you are New Orleans. So it's going to be incumbent upon this Saints team that doesn't rush the passer very well to stop the quarterback run. Like, you got to take your chances. You get an opportunity to get to the rookie quarterback, you got to get to him. But I think they're probably at, how do I want to phrase this? It's probably a better idea to be a little bit more timid in your pass rush to make sure that Jayden Daniels doesn't get outside and start to make plays out there. I'm not telling you he can't beat you from the pocket. He can beat you from the pocket. He's proven that. He's a really good player. There's a reason why not a lot of teams have slowed this team down. There's a reason why they scored 42 on Tennessee. There's a reason they scored 27 on Pittsburgh. Reason they scored 40 on Carolina. Reason they scored 34 on a good Cleveland defense, 42 on Arizona, 38 on the Bengals. Like, there's a reason they're running up big point totals. He's really good, and with McLaurin out there and whoever the second option is week to week, they've made it happen. But you've got to kind of pick your poison, because you can't try to do both. You can't get after him and take away open space in front of him, right? I think your best bet is to try to keep him from extending plays too long and making your young corners run out there and cover. That's just my 2 cents with the Saints and Jayden Daniels. I don't love the matchup currently with this Saints defense and this Commanders offense. I think Washington matches up very, very well. That's going to put the onus on a Saints offense to try to keep up in this game with Jake Haener at quarterback, which is probably a bigger story than this one, but we've already talked about that this week, so I figured I would change the angle for this specific matchup. I just don't think the Saints can keep up with Jake Haener and that wide receiver core. Like, maybe with that wide receiver core and a veteran in Derek Carr, they can do enough, but it feels like Haener's going to check it down a lot. It feels like Haener's probably going to make a mistake or two. And if your running game struggles the way that it did last week against the Giants, you're in massive trouble. You can eke by the Giants with Drew Lock at quarterback on the road when your running game can't get going. But if it doesn't on Sunday, I don't think New Orleans can keep up. So I'll give you my final score prediction in this one. I like the Commanders to win it 30-17. I think maybe one of those touchdowns comes late for the Saints. I think Washington maybe gets away from the Saints late in the third quarter of this game. I just don't love the matchup at all. So that's my final pick here for the Washington Commanders to go in there on Sunday and beat New Orleans. I'll hand the mic over now to Jordan and tell me what I said that was completely wrong, even though I know you are not happy with your black and gold right now, and you're probably not going to give me much sunshine and rainbows over there.
Oh, no. I'm never going to give sunshine and rainbows about this team.
I bet you were about 2009, about 2018. I bet you were.
A little, 2019 too, but that's another story about another time. So I agree with that. This game can get ugly. It has get ugly written all over because you're out there with Jake Haener against Jayden Daniels, who's been playing the whole season. So he knows it. He's probably going to be comfortable. But there's a little caveat. This could be a prime look-ahead spot that the Commanders are in because they got the Eagles next week.
Okay,
so they could be, undermine the Saints. Like, okay, they're over with Brizzy Ball and all this and whatever. So they could get caught up like that. It would have to be close, like you said, because they can score.
Shout out Darren Rizzi for, they're 3-1 since he took over. Like, they've played
more
well.
More than Dennis Allen.
Yeah.
So,
no.
A
Dennis Allen shot in mid-December from Jordan. He cannot let the guy off the hook.
The body's still warm, okay? The body's still warm.
No, it's not. It is ice cold for Coach Allen. Beck, you've spent some years watching Jayden Daniels play and got some black and gold in your blood. Any chance the Saints can catch him in a look-ahead spot here?
No.
That's a quick answer from producer Jacob Beck, and that's why we pay him monster salary to push the buttons over there. All right, let's come back and talk a little LSU SMU hoops. We got LSU and SMU tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Dean Rawlski covers the Mustangs for On 3. He'll jump aboard coming up next. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.